I'm from the upcoming, so we officially meet. I wanted to ask you from the beginning, who is your character and in what moment of his life do we meet him?
So we meet Remo, my character, who's a jockey, horse rider. We meet him, I would say, right before he undertakes the biggest and most profound existential journey that he could undertake, right? He is a very successful jockey, like multi-awarded jockey. But then when the film started, we start seeing I'm tired today, this sort of self-destructive Remo that is going down to, some people could say hell, some people could say oblivion. He's going down a spiral, existential spiral, towards a new realm or mental space to be finally reborn into a new person. Okay, it's a little metaphysical what I'm saying, but I would say that the journey is a little bit about that, even though the film is very spectacular and it has lots of, image-wise, it's super attractive. But down deep, I would say that Remo is ready to obliterate everything.
And how did you prepare for the role and for being a jockey in film?
I had some horse riding lessons. I had done many for another film, so it wasn't the first time. But I was really doing the posture in which they run, and your knees and your legs like burn. It was super intense. And even though we don't see much of that because it was super risky and insurances, they don't cover that, so you can't really ride a horse, it was super important to understand, like, the stiffness and the way your muscles start to behave when you're a jockey, or at least have a little bit of a taste. And it really helped with the walking, with the attitude, with the groundness, with the lightness at the same time. So that was the technical aspect of it. And then of course, we rehearsed with Luis, but rehearsals with Luis are always about getting together and talking about everything and nothing. So it wasn't very, focused on each scene.
And why does Remo decide to stop being a jockey? Like, do you believe that somehow it takes a hold of him, that it doesn't allow him to be who he wants to be, for instance?
I wouldn't say that he decides consciously to stop being a jockey. That's a minor detail. I would say that we see this journey that I was talking about before. Many journeys need an accident at one point, right? Accident could be a slight accident, but a hinge moment, right? That allows for distraction so that something new can sort of reformulate, right? That's a good question in the sense of, is that an accident? Or is he producing it? We don't know. As many things in life, right? Did it happen to you or you made it happen? Are you breathing or you're being breathed? You know what I mean? Who's doing what? And I think that's maybe the logic of the film. Who's doing what?
Can you relate to your character? I'm thinking about the way that you, as an actor, you can constantly redefine yourself for each role, and he does kind of the same. So it becomes kind of meta in a way. And I'm curious about your afterthoughts after finishing the film.
It's very personal, but it's a nice question. I would say that I play because I want to live experiences rather than playing roles, and yeah, of course that if they propose you to play Remo and you have that intimate quest of like wanting to experience the world through physicality and dreams and experiences, you're gonna be you're gonna dive into this role like right away. You're gonna love it and embrace it. I'm all my characters, there's nothing bad about it, and my characters are me. My characters define me and I define them. Everything is a mirroring, labyrinth. And maybe that's what I am trying to do right now with myself. It's funny when you look back and you see at the parts that you played, even though you had no idea when you were playing them, there's something reflecting your actual, Nahuel's life in the characters. And I think that's very touching.
I'm gonna do a follow-up to what you said, because I was thinking that in a way Remo is scared to be seen by the world as only as a jockey. And I wanted to ask, I know if it's too personal or not, but aren't you sometimes scared that you're gonna be perceived only through your roles instead of who you really are, or you want to be perceived by those roles, as you mentioned?
I don't think in those terms. I don't really care. But I think that roles are also traces of attempts, of personal attempts, why do you gravitate to a certain part and not to the other? I don't know, and I don't really want to think a lot about that because if you intellectualize too much, then maybe you lose that instinct. So I don't know. I let myself go, I would say, like instinct-wise when I read a script. I'm not afraid of being perceived as something, but I am afraid of perceiving things only in one way. So if we go back to Remo, I would say that dissolution is something that attracts me a lot in general terms, like dissolution of borders, of identity, nationalities. I'm really for that idea, of course. Like we are all brothers and sisters, and then at one point we divided ourselves, and instead of like collaborating and finding symbiosis in the way we communicate, we decided that some had the power to oppress the others, and there was like this crazy thing that we created that we're seeing right now, and how much we get further away from the earth, and how it's like telling us, hey guys, you left me alone, get back. So I think that dissolution plays a big role in that quest, like go back, and I think that's Remo as well, you see, go back to something that we all had and that we all have right now, but we are not seeing, that we are hiding, that we are suppressing. It's there. We know that we can love each other because we know how to love if we allow ourselves. And the film is about that, about loving or not knowing how to love or trying hard to love, right? All that process. And the fact that Remo, in the end, spoiler alert, does the whole cycle of dissolution, it's a very hopeful film in a way.
I also wanted to ask you if does being an actor also requires for you similar sacrifices, just like, Remo has to make something in order to fulfill himself. Do you also have to make some sacrifices when you prepare for roles? Do you see this kind of correspondence or not really?
I would say that audacity, but not as a heroic thing, audacity in the sense of like going forward even though you're like fucking afraid, and not letting fear like block you, and getting fuel from fear, and knowing that everything is out of control because that's life, and everything is impermanent, and that you could read not as a sacrifice but as something that we have to let go, right? Something that you really have to let go, and that you have to trust the big machine and others, so that you are able to embody maybe something. I mean, that's my quest, something newer, something surprising even for yourself, something that renews in a way. But it could apply for my actor and for my person. It's all the same.
You're saying that you have to trust the process, and I feel like all of you as actors, you had to believe your director, Luis Ortega, in this task, the entire quest of going through this adventure of your film. And I wanted to ask you, how was it like to work with him, and did you maybe learn anything from him as well?
Many things, but Luis, I've known him for like 20 years, and he's the only director that I collaborated more than once. This is our third time working together. Even though I feel that I know where he is about, it always gets deeper and deeper, and even him doesn't know, and that's what's nice. We discover things while we do them. After, when we watch the film, like yesterday, we understood things, or we felt things about the film that we had never thought before. And I think that's so inspiring when you're collaborating, and like the authorship in a way gets dissolved as well. And at a point you're like, I don't know who did that, if it was an idea coming from Luis, or if it was me, or if it was my partner, or if it was just the day. And that's so touching for me. That's why I continue playing. I wouldn't say I learned something. It's deeper, and it's more about the way we perceive ourselves and the world, and letting go. I think it's a lot about letting go as well. But not letting go like, I don't care, I want to forget. Letting go in the sense of embracing and consciousness and opening up, to ourselves and to otherness.
Is it quite touching for you when you work with someone you've known for ages, and there are moments when you're like surprised that something happens that you didn't expect, that you think that you know someone very well, and then you go on set and the magic happens? That's how can we read it?
With Luis, it happens always like that. And it's crazy because it's not something that he consciously produces. He's a little wizard, like a witch, like a magician. but a very cool one. You see him and you're like, okay, he's just a director doing what he has to do. But then unconsciously, he's like sort of weaving, and then all of a sudden, magic appears. I had crazy experiences with Luis, like very like deep existential crazy things. Like we were shooting once a dance scene for another film that we did, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago, and all of a sudden throughout the scene like started pouring down rain, and we had like this crazy thunderstorm, and then it stopped when he said cut, like those things that are like, I don't know who made that, but it happened. And then at one point you're like, yeah, I'm not surprised. We were all aligned, and we were all, maybe it sounds like mystical what I'm saying, or like magical, but I really believe that when things are, it's like planets, when we are really like, orbiting in the right way, magic happens. Magic is here all the time. We just have to be available for it.
I think that was a good answer. It was a touching end. Thank you for today.